Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, here's another bitter truth in the spiritual path, and that truth is you cannot dissolve the mind for good. You cannot. You can understand the nature of the mind, and you can understand how the mind comes into existence and how the mind becomes real. You can see that, but you cannot dissolve the mind for good. Before the enlightenment journey, the mind is there, and because of the mind, there's a struggle. Why there's a struggle? Because the mind is not true. After enlightenment, mind is still going to be there as a reference, but not as a reality. Post-enlightenment journey, you see the truth, and also you see the nature of the mind. And you anchor in the truth, and mind is just a reference to connect the dots in the relative world. But in the inner world, you don't need the mind. You only need to see who you are and rest in that. And that is enough. Only when you're walking the path, that chunk, until you see the truth, that chunk, that process is known as dissolving the mind. But that dissolving the mind gives people a wrong impression. This dissolving the mind is actually deconstructing the mind, dismantling the mind to figure out the truth, taking out the layers of the mind. It's like taking out the pieces of Lego pieces from that grand Lego art. Your mind is like a Lego art. Who you are so far right now is something, isn't it? You identify yourself with something. You see that something is the highest in your life. And that highest is through your experience and through the collection of ideas or credential. And the ideas are like a Lego pieces. You are already somebody, and that inward journey, the process is taking out the Lego pieces, the ideas one by one, dismantling to see what is left when all the pieces are out. So that chunk in the world is known as dissolving the mind. But there's a big misunderstanding in the seeker's point of view. And because of the misunderstanding, people are trying to eliminate the mind. Not through deconstruction, not through dismantling, but by forcing. And you're already doing that in the meditation, isn't it? Or even in this simple quiet practice, you're trying to push the mind away. Most of the quiet practice or meditation relaxation practice, you are trying to push your mind away. You're fighting with the mind. And to eliminate the mind, what you're doing is you're actually bringing something in the mind to move away from the mind that is stressing you. And what's happening in your meditation is you are focusing on the technique. That technique is mental focal point. When you focus on that mental focal point, whatever, it's a mantra or visualization or bodily focus, still comes as a mental impression. So when you focus on that mental impression for long enough, your peripheral mentality, the impression, the fluctuation, the complexity of the mind starts to fade away, because your awareness is watching that point. Whatever point you have, whatever point you are focusing on. So when you're focused on something, the periphery dissolves, your distraction dissolves, the agitated mind subsides. And when the focus is so intense in your quiet practice, and that is happening with the control of the body, you keep reminding yourself to stay on that point, focus on that point. And when you're intensely focusing, you're controlling the body, you're controlling the mind. And from that work, control approach, you are creating that hyperventilation. And because of that, the hyperventilation, you lose that focal point. And then there's a moment of no mind. And when you are having the moment of no mind, there can be a visualization or mystical experience people go through with the help of that hyperventilation. So when you experience that moment of no mind, you are already seeing that there is no mind for a moment. And you start to think, oh, there's no mind. And then you back into that focal point again. So after that moment of no mind, there's a mind again. And once you had that experience, you are always trying to prolong that gap, isn't it? That gap of no mind. And also there's so much things written in the so-called spiritual books. The truth is between thoughts. Or the truth is between in-breath and out-breath. Especially in a yoga world. And when you have such an experience, you are prolonging, trying to create that gap bigger and bigger. And that creating that gap, it comes from further controlling the body. And this controlling is coming from the misperception, misunderstanding of what true spirituality about and how to get to the truth. And misunderstanding is already there. And you are part of that misunderstanding, isn't it? Because you are doing that work, trying to create that gap. that creating the gap is through self-examination. Right now, we always identify ourselves in the mind, and we keep narrating the mind, keep making the story bigger and bigger in our heads. We can never let go of the mind, and that's the reality. And sitting in the meditation, forcing yourself, trying to prolong that gap, it's not going to help. It didn't help, it won't help, and in the future the same thing, it won't help if you keep doing the same thing. The enlightenment journey is about not to get affected by the mind, not about creating the space between the thoughts. It's about understanding the mind. The gap is when you see who you are and what is mind, the nature of the mind, then there is a disconnection from the mind. Disconnection from the mind is the gap, the real gap. And truth itself is the spaciousness. Truth itself is that freedom that you have always been looking for. And that itself is a consciousness. And the nature of the consciousness is conscious and empty. Empty. So forcing yourself to become empty is never empty. Through self-inquiry and understanding the mind is the way to become empty and taking the real seat of who you are. That is the work. So, if you notice what I'm saying, and if you realize that the approach that you are involved in is not working to let go the mind, then be part of the self-inquiry. Self-inquiry process is about looking into your issues in life, looking into your own suffering, personal struggle, personal fear. Accepting and understanding, and eventually not getting affected by those. And to make that happen, you must see the truth. Without seeing the truth, it's not possible. An enlightenment journey is also about finding the freedom in the world, not ignoring the world. When people start to be part of the spiritual world, there's a tendency to ignore the world. They see the world is a suffering because they are suffering in the world. And that suffering is there because of missing out the truth and not able to connect with the world. And not able to connect with the world is because lack of attention and lack of understanding what the world is about. The outer world is all about a pattern, including our mind is all about pattern. There's a sequential things in the relative world. And figuring out the truth or true freedom is about dissolving all patterns. So, not to suffer in the relative world, in the pattern world, you just have to be aware, and you just have to see what you have, what's missing, and connecting the dots. And that way your life starts to get simpler and less headache. You still have to put the effort in the relative world. When you are alive, you have to be part of the world. Your body is functioning in the world. It needs supports from the world to stay alive until the body is ready to, dissolve. Dissolve means where the body comes to an end, when it cannot function anymore. So until the day comes, your body is dependent in the world. So the effort has to be there in the outer world. Ignoring the outer world is not the solution for the inner freedom. People who have ignored the outer world, they still need the outer world. And if someone is rejecting the outer world, that itself is a resistance. That itself is the ego playing the role, playing the game. People don't even realize that the ego is so stubborn that just trying to throw something that is needed. Spirituality is about finding ease in the world and also finding the truth. So when you are in the spiritual journey, when you're trying to figure out the truth, and if you're really walking the reference of the real spiritual path, then that path itself will teaches you what the world is all about. And the world is pattern. And truth of who you are is not pattern. So anyway, you cannot dissolve the mind for good. Again, that dissolving the mind gives a wrong impression. You cannot dissolve the mind. You can understand the mind by tracing the mind backward. Dismantling the mind or deconstructing the mind. Some say subtracting the mind. Subtracting, dismantling, deconstructing, or tracing the mind backward. They are the same thing. So stop ignoring the world. And when you are suffering, you directly look into your issues, suffering, struggle, pain, your personal experience, and ask yourself, why am I experiencing whatever you are experiencing? And when you ask why to yourself, that why is gonna give you the answer, isn't it? Every time you ask yourself why, there's an answer. So the why is the way to dismantling the mind. So here's a example. You are going through the struggle now, and because of the struggle, you are aligned with the spiritual practice. Okay, so look into your experience. You ask yourself, you're struggling, no doubt. And the struggling is coming from the not able to see who you are and not knowing what the world is about. And because of that, there's a struggle. So you're struggling, no doubt. You ask yourself, why am I struggling? Why? Why? Just sit with the why. And whatever answer resurface from asking why am I suffering, now use that answer. Why is that important? So every single time you ask why, there's the answer. Every time there's the answer, use the answer to trace your mind backward. Every answer you use it to deepen the inward journey by asking, why is that important? Or why is that in me? So this is the way to simply tracing the mind backward. And when you trace your mind backward, then you end up seeing the root cause of the attachment, or root cause of the suffering, a root cause of the the fluctuation on the surface that you're experiencing. Once you see the root, then the spiritual path is about dismantling the root as well. The root itself is a ingrained conditioning. Once you recognize the ingrained conditioning, this is where you have to keep dismantling. Don't try to add the positive stuff when you see the root cause of your suffering. If you really want the true freedom from the fear, freedom from the conflict, freedom from the struggle, or freedom from the mind, then you cannot add the positive stuff when you see the root cause of the suffering. That positive stuff is another mind, layer of the mind. Negative and positive, they are all mind, the duality. The freedom is about the non-dual. Only truth is non-dual. The plain sight truth is non-dual reality. So to get there, you cannot get lost by planting the new seed, or planting or holding on to the new positive layer in you. Everything must go. In the relative sense, yes, you see the conditioning. The conditioning is making you suffer. Yes, you can, create a good habit and make things better. Associate with something that is healthy, that is sequential, where it can flow easily. But the spiritual journey is not about that. Spiritual journey is about dismantling everything until nothing is left, and that nothing is the truth itself, the consciousness itself, and that is empty. So you have to become empty to be free. Right? You cannot dissolve the mind for good. Dissolving the mind is only the walking process when you are dismantling the mind or subtracting the mind. That part is known as dissolving the mind. But again, that dissolving the mind is not about forcing your body and mind to controlling so much to create that no mind. You can't do that. That is a failure to see the truth, a failure to be free from your struggle. Okay, anyway, I hope this video makes sense. Thanks for watching the video. Yeah, take care for now. Bye.